Hi, my name is Dr. Carrie Hatcher-Kay, and I am wanting to acknowledge that we are meeting something right now in the world together that's really complex with this coronavirus. And it is something that is stimulating in people a lot of panic and confusion, overwhelm, and it is just a time that we really want to share trauma-informed information that can be hopeful in helping explain these various responses that people are really quite naturally having as sort of defense survival strategies in a time of threat. And I want to share this model from Janina Fisher's incredible integration of wisdoms in our field that are mind and body based, attachment, dynamic, trauma informed fields, or research and theory. And so this sort of consummate storyteller in Janina has created tools and writing that is about not just teaching therapists how to understand the complexity of how trauma and injuries, attachment injuries or trauma injuries, and live in our body, but really helping all people. So these are tools she's created for clinicians to share with clients. So this chart right here is something I want to share just a little bit about as a map and a model for understanding how people are responding to the sense of perceived threat. In fact, it is a valid threat. This little virus, this tiny little coronavirus, is something that is having a lot of power inside people's brains and bodies and our communities, our whole worldwide community. So these are psychological aids for working with trauma. My page was already turned to this chart of understanding in trauma, the nervous system can sometimes go to hyperarousal of panic and impulsivity and defensiveness and feeling unsafe and vigilance and racing thoughts. See the speed of my voice? Does that feel kind of familiar in that state of hyperarousal, preparation for danger? And then there's the hypoarousal state, which is a collapsed and a shutdown body response that's familiar to us in the form of the possum, where the possum actually finds safety in lowering its head and its blood pressure and its heart rate in order to survive, because then it looks less like a threat to the predator. So what we're honoring here in the body of the human nervous system is something very similar, which is to sort of shut down and collapse and not go be hopeful. And when we're invited right now with every wisdom from all the doctors and public health epidemiologists to do is to actually retreat for safety. And that is a really generous, wise capacity that most of us have with homes to do that. And what we're also trying to do is also recognize and help those find shelter and safety in places who may not have the same degree of access. So this is a communal experience like none other that our community, broadly speaking, is facing right now. What we might aim to do is be in this place in the middle where we can come to label the racing thoughts or the numb, hopeless shutdown and tolerate it. It's called the window of tolerance, which is a chart really used. Daniel Siegel helped map it, and many others did. Actually, let me credit here. Pat Ogden in sensory motor psychotherapy really helped. This has really become a tool for so many in the mind-body therapies and trauma literature. So from Janina's chart and collaborating with Janina, this is an extension of her work. Let me just quickly show you that the build up to this chart comes from the background that all of us, when we face something traumatic, simply defined as something that's overwhelming, I think all of us right now could be described as experiencing something that is really bigger than we're used to coping with and it's changing hourly. So we don't know how long this challenge is going to last and what it's going to require of us and what it's going to mean for our economy, people who are most vulnerable, and the whole unknowns. So when we face something overwhelming, we have a left brain capacity to just carry on and keep going on with normal life to the best of our capacity. And that is really important for us right now to remember. We want to be keeping routines when possible. We want to be resting and finding time outside that can feel safe. Continue with our routines in terms of the nutritious access to foods that can help us feel safe, and again, supporting those who might not have that too, just to be conscious of how we can help people move forward and function. People are obviously gaining access to ways to to work when possible in person, when possible online, and just really being judicious and thoughtful. And this is a key part of our left brain capacities, to be really thoughtful about that. The right brain stays focused on the danger, and it feels in really more comfortable being expectant of the danger than it is going on functioning. The crazy possibility is that we aim to head towards this place where we can label both happening at the same time. So let's just quickly again look at the sequence where Janina translated Vanderhart, Egenhouse, and Steele's description of trauma survivors' capacities to survive through the lens of animal survival defense strategies. And many of us know of fight and flight and freeze. We just mentioned the submit skill of possums. We all do it, to just retreat. Attach is the reaching out for help, and we're doing that right now, right? There's a lot of communications and grasping and saying, what's going on? I need to find out what's going on, and that's healthy. We as mammals do that to survive, right? To reach out for help. We can never live entirely independently. We are an interdependent species, and this time is calling for that more than ever. So Janina elaborated in this model, the structural dissociation model, a question of who is showing up now to help us wonder, really. And this is a why self qualities that quickly is integrating Richard Schwartz's internal family systems model of these qualities of courage and compassion, creativity, clarity and confidence and committedness, that, again, collaborating with Janina, I created this chart to bring these two together with the image that she's often drawn in her work of arms that can hold this. And this holding is both a mental holding and an understanding, and a heart holding and understanding. And so the community right now is taxed and tasked with attempting to grasp and hold the space for all the animal survival defense strategies of fight, attack, being vigilant, get the information, try to control this, figure out, have opinions that are really strong, grab food that will get your resources, right? Flight, we also have this instinct, get me out of here. Can somebody please take me to safety somewhere? Some substances might soothe and take me away from all this stress and pressure, please. Food, alcohol, ambivalence, getting I can't get clear about what I'm supposed to do. I don't know where I'm supposed to go, but I got to go somewhere, and there's just a lot of energy in the body. The freeze response is this place of just frozen, right? Panic, wary, I don't know what to do. I've got all this energy to sort of attack and flee from a situation, but there's really, actually, right now on our precious planet, not an island that is a clear harbor. In a physical sense, we are being all asked to recognize something really complex and challenging, that we as a species are going to face this meeting with another species called the coronavirus, little pink tiny organism has entered into our species, and there is really natural time to experience some of those feelings of just fear and wariness and terror. So many of us may recognize that in moments in ourselves and in our loved ones and in the news and around the world. It's just really useful to be able to label it. That's a panic response. It's very instinctual in our body and our brains. The submit response is also one that people are experiencing, feeling very hopeless, numb, kind of overwhelmed, and can't even feel because of all this being so intense. Just go back to this chart, there's some safety in just shutting down all the way and coming down here in the nervous system, down to the hypoarousal state. And then we also recognize this attach call, which is really people reaching out, be sure they're safe. The challenge is we can't travel right now in safe ways, right? And so is it possible that with understanding of all of these responses being normative, being communal, we could actually create a practice more and more, and leaders are offering this. Jack Kornfield just sent out a beautiful meditation message reminding us of Thich Nhat Hanh's story when he saw Vietnamese, his community, his people. He's from Vietnam, right? They were in panic. There was war and hunger, and people needed to get out. His people needed to leave. They didn't know where they were going, what the next safety spot was going to be, but they knew it was not to stay in that place. And they left in rickety boats on unknown, tough seas. And Thich Nhat Hanh tells the story that those boats that had somebody on board who was calm and loving, sang or spoke with clarity, this is where we're going next, this is how we're going, and with a confidence and love that we're going to meet this moment, these seas, these unknowns, these fears we're leaving, with love and compassion. That is the space and the courage that brought these people to actually row together better and to coordinate better and to get where they were going more smoothly and faster, obviously to safety better. So let's practice being those voices on our boats, in our offices as therapists, in our families as community members, that we all want to be accessing those things that bring that harbor within you to bring it to others on this vessel of our planet, the vessel of our shared journeys into the stores, right? That when you see people, make eye contact in some small way, acknowledge we're in this together, be a space when we can, and then when we're not, attempt maybe to find a label. Oh, this is that animal part of me, that right brain instinct for survival. It's going into panic mode, or it's going into attack and control. I gotta make people behave this way. Oh my gosh, somebody's touching their face. Somebody is hugging when they shouldn't. Oh my gosh, I gotta correct. I gotta fix my child, my behavior, my school's behavior, right? Anger. There's a lot of anger going on. We can just recognize this as normative. And when we take that capacity to label it, we bring online the frontal cortex. And the languaging of, oh, that's my fight response, we might put back here in the credit of the animal brain, the instinct brain. Not with judgment necessarily that we're attacking or a loved one is attacking or people are angry or aggressive, but like, oh, look at all those animal instincts running around right now. Wow, it's powerful, it's potent. And in that labeling, we get a little distance from it. And so in the anatomical sense, we actually bring blood to the frontal cortex, which is languaging. And we get a little distance on the fight response, which is more where the blood goes into the rear brain. And that is not bad. It's not bad to have the hopelessness. It's not bad to have the panic. All of that is through neural pathways that are well grooved for millennia and for survival. And if we didn't have that negativity bias of that instinct, we wouldn't be around because our forebears would not have cultivated the wisdom to run away, to get away from danger. to fight danger. But also we wouldn't be around if our forebears hadn't figured out language and communication and how to cultivate and build community and farms and buildings and community structures and networks that support one another. So we see in here the strengths that specifically when we're in this state, we can actually see the strength of the fight response, which is to act, advocate, be determined, diligent, plan. That is that same instinct, right? When less blood's coming down here, then those same neural pathways have access to the skills of the prefrontal cortex, which involve, that same instinct to fight and attack something can be animalistic in one sense, can also be very mediated by this capacity to say, okay, I'm going to attack this. I'm going to plan sort of what foods that I need. I don't want to hoard so that other people don't have enough. I want to plan so that I am sure that I wash my hands and think about that and do this with information, not with overwhelm, right? Flight is that place where we still need to move and play and explore and learn. This might be a time for music making, for movement in the house, because some of those classes or activities may be closed for a few weeks for wise safety. We don't know exactly how long, but we know we have this instinct and regenerative spirit within us to move. And there's online resources for yoga or biking with people on your bike. What do I want to say? Stationary bike. For all sorts of movement, right? And good old just walking in nature. And that's that play or creativity or writing or journaling or painting. Freeze response. This is the response has a wisdom of being contemplative, thoughtful, and slowed down. This might be a good time for a little bit more of a mindfulness and meditation practice. In this calm place where we note, I don't have to take action all the time. I need the restoration. Could it be possible that the strength of this submit response at this time may not be to go collapsing all the way into numbness and hopelessness, but into the sanctuary of maybe retreating a little bit from the intensity of our busy lives, and maybe not plunging into full-on media time and activity online, but really a book, a fireplace, a space, and I'm thinking of people with less access to particular kind of private resources, but to go into a space in your shelter that is a little quieter, and maybe just kind of go inward. Whether that be a homeless shelter or another sort of safety zone that our community members live in, that always we might know that there's a place to seek, maybe with earbuds, some inner quiet. It's also a space of generosity. The submit isn't always focused on myself, but thinking about others. Attach, that is the place when it's not all sort of desperately reaching and focusing on not being connected, because there's going to be a lot of the feeling triggered right now as people are in this distancing. That's for health purposes. That could flash to people a reminder of feeling alone, or trigger a feeling in people of being isolated or distanced, put away, and that can trigger for people who have any sort of any memory, not even just trauma experience, but just the human experience of aloneness. It can trigger that feeling of being abandoned and alone. What we want to cultivate is the possibility that we can be connected and reach and feel sated, feel satisfied, with maybe the connections that are going to come in a different form, including with this connection, with our wise self within us labeling this, knowing our body experience, knowing our emotions, knowing our physical responses right now are actually natural. These are about survival instincts. And that communities that are responding with a lot of blaming, that is normal, right? Communities that are responding with a lot of hopelessness and feeling like, how are we going to do this? It's the same as individuals responding with that. That is normative, and we can sort of see, feel, watch, and witness over the weeks and months ahead. This is a new challenge, and we are in it together. This is a global vessel we are on. How can we continue to cultivate being those voices? So I want to thank Janina Fisher for being a mentor in integrating these wisdoms, and Thich Nhat Hanh, Jack Kornfield, and Tara Brach. So many resources for holding space, and seek those right now at this time that reorient you. Bring your compass back to that center that actually uses this time as an opportunity to grow. There's this concept in our field that's called post-traumatic growth. And there's a resilience that can come from overwhelm that is actually, we cultivate new spaces within ourselves for growth, new understandings, new skills, new connections. I invite us potentially to seek as much of that post-traumatic growth or post-traumatic resilience, and possibly learn new things as a global community. And I'm grateful to be on this journey together.